Okay, so sorry, I was interrupted. So let me start again on my video. So if you were here before, I apologize that I ended my video to start it over again, but that's okay, not a big deal. I'm okay if you're okay. So, so one of the things I've been doing is I saw a lot of people doing these decoupage shells, and so I'm crafty forever. Since I was like 8 or 9 years old, I've been making crafts. So now that I'm a Stampin' Up! Demonstrator, I make lots of cards, but the papers that we have, our designer series papers, are amazing. And they're a little bit thicker. A lot of people have been doing this technique with napkins. So I started out with this is was a napkin. And so I bought these napkins. And then basically you can use a napkin or anything papery like that. And so that's why I did it. So then this one, so when you use napkins, so you want to paint, because it's so thin, you want to paint your shell first with an acrylic, like a white acrylic, because the napkin, it'll show through. So if you don't, oyster shells sometimes have, I'll show you what it looks like if you haven't seen what. Oyster shells have this really black and discoloration here. So if you don't paint over this white, it will show through. It won't show through so much on designer series paper, Stampin' Up! Because our papers are thicker. But if you're using a napkin or something thin like that, it will show through. So it's easy. You just paint, wash them really good, and then just paint them with acrylic. Just a coat of acrylic, so you can see what I've done here. This just has a little bit of acrylic on it, so it kind of hides that. So these are some of the ones that I did. Now this one, I wanted to see what it would look like if I just pieced the paper. So if you have pieces of paper, designer series paper, different sizes, you can see that I just kind of glued it on. And I glued it on. I find that the glue sticks better to the shell if you just put the white acrylic paint on it anyway. So I just use the Tombow Mono, and I thin it down just a hair with water or a brush. But anyway, so this one is all just a bunch of pieces of paper. So when you look at it, you know, it's blue, but I mean, it looks cool to me. And here's one that's solid. So, you know, this is a little fancier maybe looking, but I mean, you can use scraps of paper if it's easier to do, to make it look more scrappy. But I mean, these have like 3 or 4 coats of sealer on them. I use Mod Podge. So this is the Mod Podge that I use, which is a really super gloss brilliant, but you can get it in any different ones. I got this at Hobby Lobby. But anyway, with this one, instead of using the Tombow, you can just paint this with the Mod Podge and then stick your napkin on with that. You don't have to, you can use it, but the Mod Podge is fine. So you could do that with that. But anyway, it's kind of cool looking, huh? And this is another one. This is the first time I used. Those that have been around Stampin' Up! For a while, you probably recognize this paper. It's retired, but you know, it's just beautiful. I just love it. So this was like the first one I did with Stampin' Up! Paper. So it's a little more, you'll see what I do one for you, but you know, you just kind of have to mess with it and just take your fingers and just kind of smooth it out. There's wrinkles in here, but I kind of like the way the wrinkles look. But you don't have to. You could be really precise about it. Just keep smoothing it and moving it until you don't have any wrinkles in it. But for me, it's part of the charm. And so this is one of our newer papers. And so it almost looks like it's hand painted, but it's not. But you see the little wrinkles here? So you could keep working with it and working those out if you want, but I kind of think it adds to the charm. And so you could see all the way up into the quarter. And so that's that. And then this is another one that I did. So you can see all the different colors that are possible with it. Anyway, I love it. And then I decided I would do a Christmas one. So I haven't done this yet, but you know those trees, especially if you're down here, have you seen those trees that are covered in oyster shells? Well, I think that this would be really cool to do a bunch of Christmassy designs. You could do all the same or different ones. And then they use a styrofoam Christmas tree shape or cone shape. And then they They glue them on. So you could do that. And then you'd have a tree with that. Or you can drill a little hole in here and make it into, put some ribbon through it and hang it on the tree. You can also, stamp some sentiments like I showed you this was. So this is done with our white paper, cardstock, basic white. And then I did it all flat. So I stamped it using some from here. This one says love you to the beach and back, which I love. So I stamped the paper with this. And then I used some of the other stamps. There's a scallop shell stamp. I used that. And then these are our Stampin' inks. So this is the fresh freesia. And so I just took a brush. This is after I put it on the shell. I took the brush and just colored these. And then I just glued it down the soft succulent and did the same thing on the paper. But I didn't color, I stamped this, but I didn't color any of these things in until after I had already put it on here. So you could do it however you want. I was experimenting because I wasn't sure. I used Memento Black, but I just wasn't sure if it would react to the Mod Podge and run, but you could tell it didn't do it. I kind of like the way it looks. So you could do that. You could put sentiments. So if you wanted to make shells for different things, I just really wanted to take the time to show you guys how easy it is really to do this. Not that you need one more thing to do, but it's just kind of a cool thing to do. And believe it or not, if you go on and look at little boutique shops, or if you go on Etsy, these things sell for anywhere between $18 and $30. For what? So, I mean, you could make them. I mean, they're just, and no one has more beautiful paper than what we have Stamp It Up. But a decoupage is fun. So this one, this is a different shell, but I picked this one up on the beach somewhere. It's in my collection. But anyway, so I went ahead and put this on a few days ago, and it's ready to do. And then I have a couple of these that are just colored, that I've already gone and put the little bit of white paint on. Okay, so I'm gonna move this up out of the way for a little bit so I could work here. Okay, so what I'm gonna show you is I cut this little 3x3 piece of paper, 3.5 by 3.5. Okay, so what I do, I just get a sponge and some water. So, because what I do is you have to get get the paper a little bit moist because our paper is thicker, much thicker than a napkin. But it has an advantage for doing that. But what I do is just put water on it, and I let it sit for a little bit. But I wanted you to see how I do it. The paper will start to shred if you mess with it too much, like once you start trying to fit it into the shell. So, it's trial and error. But you really just, if you're patient, it'll work out great. And then it's just something different. It's just something different to do. And so, I was thinking that wouldn't it be great to do a shadow box? You could do a shell, and then you could do like a little shadow box, and you could put the paper, whatever the paper that you're focused on, and you could do a shadow box with some different pieces of the paper, like we normally do with the shadow boxes, like an 8x8 or 12x12, and then you could maybe in the center of it you could put a shell, and you could attach it on the inside. It would just be another way, or you could put the papers in the back and just do different shells or whatever. But so it'll get a little more flexible to this. But in the meantime, I'm going to show you how I do the gold, and then because everything has to dry, so you can use any color. I had this. I don't know. It's acrylic paint. It's gold. It's Folk Art brand, but you could use anything that you have, or you could get something. But there's so many different. You can see this is well used and not cleaned very well. I just kind of break it out. So that's what I'm using is the gold. I kind of like the gold, but you could use whatever suits your fancy, and you can you could go ahead and put your sealer on first if you want, and then come back and paint the gold last. But I'm doing it this way because I want to show you. It's for demonstration purposes. That's how I would normally do it, is I would just seal it first. Now you can get really, I mean, you could put more glue under here. You see there's a little bit of a gap there. You can do that if you want. I'm kind of a no frills. It looks gorgeous and you could be really particular if you want to, but honestly, it's a shell. And, you know, if you're making them for friends or you're making them for yourself, it doesn't have to be perfect. If you're going to sell them, you know that too. But I mean, I'm telling you, it's a seashell. It looks gorgeous. And you can do as much. So like this paper didn't come up quite far enough, but when I painted gold, it's like I did it on purpose, right? Just to show the texture of the shell. I love texture, so that's... And you can put more than one coat on. Honestly, you could. I just really wanted to show you this because it's so cool. I've been trying to... I bought Minicam, and I've been trying to figure out how to connect them on my devices. And it's, so for like a week now, I've been trying to do it. I'm like, every day I'm going to try to get all this done so I could show this technique that I've been doing because I'm so excited about it. I mean, you could see a zillion YouTube videos, but I haven't found one yet where anybody uses Stampin' Up stuff. And so we're all Stampin' Up people, so we need to. But you know, if you go to the beach this summer, you pick up shells. This is something you could do, you know, in the winter, or, you know, you could take your stuff with you when, you know, when you're at the beach. If you have a rainy day or something, you could do this. And you could do any kind of, you could do wrapping paper, napkins, anything. Okay, so I just painted this part because you really want it to get dry before you turn it over and do the other part. But so that's basically, now I wouldn't normally paint the gold, like I said, until after I did the sealing, but it really doesn't matter. Cart before horse sort of thing, it doesn't matter. Okay, so that's kind of how that is. And then this wood, this wood, I haven't painted gold yet, but this wood is the one that I was showing you. So I was going to show you how I did this wood. So this wood, actually, if I had silver, I think I'd probably use silver on this wood, but I have this thing for gold. I kind of like the gold. But this paint, I probably got it at Hobby Lobby because I was doing some acrylic painting, and I like to add a metallic color sometimes to whatever I'm painting sometimes. And so that's why I bought this gold, but you know, I bought way too much. Last. But I wanted to show you this because anybody could do this. And you should really do it. You should try. I mean, because I have bought bags and bags of shells sitting around. And you know, you don't have to do these kind of shells. You could do any kind of shell. You could just play with it. You know, just be creative. Do anything you want with it. I'm just excited about it. And so I have the blue woods. I love the blue colors, but I really like this wood. I'm going to do some more of these. I'm going to do some more. Is it pretty? Okay, what did I show you how? So that's that. And it totally like makes it pop when you put the gold on it, I think. Anyway, I'm going to set this one aside. And I'm going to find my little, this is a really fancy jelly jar, water dish, you know, so I'm sure you guys, if you have them, I have one. I use it for everything, all different ones. So that's that one. And then I have a whole bunch of these shells. My husband works at a restaurant, so he brought me home some, but right now they're not serving oysters right now, so I decided I would do a different shell. So I did this one. Okay, so this one, and like I said, there's a zillion different Mod Podge. I just bought the Super Gloss Brilliant because I like really bright. I really like that part of it. Okay, so now I have to be careful because I painted it gold. But, so then you just put this in, like this. Paint it inside. And the first, you know, I mean, it looks wet the first time. But, you know, you do 4 or 5 coats, and then it looks like, I mean, just do it until it's as shiny as you want. But I do it to the point where I don't see any more brush strokes. And it's better to put a bunch of thin coats than you know, one thick coat, because what happens, I think, with the thick ones is sometimes it has air bubbles in it, and so then then it kind of gets cloudy. So I've not got to go all the way up to the edge of this because I don't want to get gold in. Although I got a little bit of gold there, but that's okay. It'll make it shiny. So basically that's all you do. And then you let it dry. No rush here. You could bake a few cards while you're waiting for it to dry. Okay, so that's all there is to it. Okay, so now I'm going to show you. Because my paper now should probably be wet enough. I'll break this out. Okay, so let's see. What shell am I going to do? Which one did I do? This one? I don't know. Is that one or this one? Maybe I'll do this one. I measured one and I can't remember which one I measured. Let's see. It won't matter. Okay, so it's still a little bit stiff. I think it'll be okay. So when you kind of push it in like that, the other thing you can do is take out your handy snips. Okay, so when you put it on here where you want it, then if you get up to the point where you're up here, you could snip it a little bit. Okay, so here's what I do. You can put your glue on something else if you want. But I just put it on the shell. Basic stuff, crafter stuff. So that, and you could just, my brush is just a tiny bit still wet, but it goes on really well. And then you just kind of paint it hot. Spread it around a little bit. And if you don't have, I don't know about when I was growing up, the hardest part about decoupage for me, because you could sand between, you can also use sanding paper, like a really light fine on this too if you want, to sand the edges so that they're smoother. I kind of like the rough, but you could, if you want them to be smoother, if you want these little edges to be different, you can sand them. Whatever suits you. Okay, so then you gotta start somewhere. Okay, so what I do is I start down at the flattest part and I just kind of mess with it. Okay, just mess with it. So you can't really see, but see how it's kind of there? So you just kind of mess with it. And you could moisten your fingers. You could use a sponge. Lord knows, you guys are probably have more ideas than I do about how to do this, but I just want to put this little bit of thought there. I really think everybody should try it. So it might get a little wrinkly in it, but isn't that beautiful? I mean, just the paper itself is gorgeous. And I don't know about you, but I bought 2 packs of napkins, and I bought them at like Tuesday morning, and I'm like, I paid $3.50 for these napkins, and how many shells do I really want to do, and how many packs of napkins am I going to want to buy and only use 1 or 2? So that I'm like, okay, the light dawned on me that I could use some of my papers, so that I started experimenting with my papers. Okay, so I'm going to cut this because if you look down here, I've got a little bit, sometimes the paper will tear, but that's okay because I tell you, once you get it in here, it's not really going to matter. Okay, so then this is it here. Okay, so then once this dries, I've just got it spread out and it's all in the shell. Okay, so it's here and it's stuck, and the Tombow will keep it there. So then I just let it dry like this. And then once it dries, if this piece here, if I don't want that piece, see how you can see that? If I don't want that piece to overlap, then I can just trim this once it's dried. I can trim this out, no problem. But I've got a little bit of a crease there, which I don't care about. But if it bothers you, you can pull up your paper and mess with it until it gets to be the way you want it. But anyway, so that's that. That's all there is to it. And I don't trim it until after it's dry, okay? But that's that. So then let's see. We've got this paper, which is a little thicker. Let's put this one in here. Yeah, we'll put this one in here. We'll cut some of this off. Don't need that much of it. Okay, so then, I don't know, I like both sides of this, but I'm going to just go ahead and put some water on this. Right here. I'll put some on this side. This is a really pretty paper. On this side, it's really metallic-y. So I don't know. It's kind of got a cover on it, so I'm not sure how well it will do, but it's worth trying it, I think. Okay, this here. Okay. And then while I'm doing that, I'll do something different. Okay, so this wood I'll put out here. The purple or the blue. Kind of like it like this. So I'm gonna cut some of this off. But you know, there's lots of little tedious shells. Okay, so this one I'm gonna go ahead and get this one wet because I want to show you more than wood. Good. I have some cards actually. I'm gonna do a card video soon. Maybe tomorrow or something. I have a Mother's Day card that I did, but it really doesn't have to be for Mother's Day. I just did it a Mother's Day theme, and I did a graduation card, and I just haven't done any videos since like the fall. I think around, I think it was around before Thanksgiving. Kevin, my friend in Canada, Nova Scotia, we did like, I don't know, 60 some sessions every day. We did one every day, and I kind of got burned out. I loved it. I just got kind of burnt out on it, so I took a break, and then it extended to a longer break. I've been making cards. I just haven't been sharing what I've been doing. So, okay. So let's see. This would put this wood here. Okay. So it's this paper is pretty flimsy already, which is good. So we'll do this other shell. You don't really need that much glue. And again, it's one of those things where you play with it. You may find that you want more glue because it holds it better, but you know, less is more, I think. Because if you put too much on, that the paper doesn't stick as well because it's too wet, and then it might lead up or it might come up or something. But here's the thing: if it doesn't stick after it dries, if there's some areas, you can just take your brush and put extra put extra glue in, and close it up. Okay, so that this would, I don't know how to do it. It's always a thing. These papers are just so gorgeous. Okay, do it this way. But see, I mean, flatter woods are a little easier, honestly. The deep ones like this, that's pretty deep. That's a little more challenging, but you can do it. But in this one, you kind of really want to take a tape measure and just kind of see, because it's deceiving. You know how much paper you really need. But like I said, you could cover it up with paint, and everybody will think that it was your intention to do that. Don't tell anybody. They'll think it's your intention. Don't ever say it's a boo-boo, because it's not a boo-boo. Okay, so some of these papers, if you mess with them too much, they will start to separate a little bit, but really it's okay. Because it'll be okay. And so if you can't get it to stick, once it dries, if it's still a little bit loose on the edge, you could just put some glue and then just stick it back. It'll be fine. But isn't that pretty? I mean, that was like, what, a minute? I don't know. It was fast. Okay. So then let's see if we could get this one to go. Or not. Let's see. I like the scallop shells. Obviously, I haven't finished one. Did I show you this one? I did this one. And I really like this one. But I really need, so you can see the brush strokes, I think, still on it a little bit. And I think I just need to put one more coat on it. Isn't that pretty? Purple's my favorite color. It's more of a lavender color. Is that pretty? So people call these like little rings and things holders. And so not all the shells, so you could, put them on, put them somewhere. I like them if you put like, if you cluster them or something like that. And, you could cluster them. You could even glue them together if you wanted to, or put them together somehow, and just set them on your dresser or set them somewhere. They're beautiful. I love them. But I just have them on that board. So I bought these little beady things. So I was thinking that if one didn't set the way you want it to, you could just glue the little pearls onto the back to make them set up or whatever. But you could get these at the dollar store for $1, and you could do what I do and cut the thing, and then they just roll all over the place. And I have to be careful because Monty the Bichon he's very mouthy, so he picks up anything. So I could see him trying to eat these or choke on them, so I try to keep them off of the floor. But anyway, you get these for like $1 at the dollar store. or you can spend more and buy them a crafty store. But I haven't put any feet on anything yet, but that was, you know, a thought that I had about doing that. This is a relatively new thing, but I like experimenting. I have hundreds and hundreds of shells, so this is, I just picked out some of the ones that had cool shapes. Okay, so this wood is a shiny, I mean, the paper on this side's pretty too, but this was kind of shiny, so we'll see how this turns out. Just kind of mess with it. What do I call it? It's a artistic term, mess with it. Okay. So you just kind of mess with it, push it out if you want to get the creases out of it. It's nice to not have too many in, but, you know, some can't be avoided. And it's a scallop shell, so it has creases anyway on the outside. But, you know, just pull it, mash it, mess with it until you get it the way you want, whatever suits you. And this paper is a little different because it's has a sealant on it, I think, because it's shiny. So it's not quite as easy to meld around, but, you know, it's working. It's just, I think if it sat a little bit longer, maybe, it needed to be a little bit wetter, maybe. I don't know, but I'm not giving up. I'm still doing it. Okay, so I'll go over that again. So you do this part with the glue. You can use anything. You could use the Mod Podge if you didn't want to, but I kind of think this paper, the heavier paper, benefits from the thicker glue than the Mod Podge. But, you know, plus I wanted to try to use a product that we use. I haven't tried everything, so there might be some other products that Stampin' Up has that, you know, would also lend itself to this. But if you have sequins or anything else that you have in your embellishment toolbox, you could just do so many things to it. So this one I'm gonna let it be a little wrinkly because I kind of like the way it looks, and it's easier to do than to mess with it too much. So I'm gonna have uniform wrinkles. It's kind of cool. It's got that thing in the middle. Okay, so then you kind of just push it out a little bit. And then, of course, if it's not stuck when it dries, you just could add some more glue around it. And then this one, if this one definitely would lend itself to some silver paint instead of gold. Or you could use brass. It looks more of a brassy color for that. So I'm going to let that one dry. So I've got this one that's got to dry. It'll probably have to dry overnight. And then on the back, so then once all this dries, it takes a little while. Once all this dries, then you could paint this. And it'll probably take a couple coats of this to actually stick. But, keep playing with it. And if you want to do the napkin, you could, if you have some napkins that you really like. I mean, this is pretty, it's a pretty napkin. Was a napkin. You wouldn't know it's a napkin. But, the same thing with any kind of papers that you have. So I hope this inspired you to try something. And let me know. Show me some pictures. I hope that you will enjoy. If you have any questions, feel free to contact me. Okay? You guys, and have a good evening. Thank you for joining.